Lavandula angustifolia might sound like the name of an ancient Roman emperor, but it's actually the scientific name for the lavender plant. The leaves and striking blue petals of this aromatic flowering shrub are used to make lavender essential oil, an ingredient in many health and beauty products. Lavender essential oil has antiviral, antibacterial, and anti-inflammatory properties. No wonder it's long been a natural remedy for many ailments. And with its flowery fragrance and relaxant effects, it's also a common ingredient in lotions, soaps, and bath oils. To determine the right time to harvest, the producer looks at the quantity of blooms and the color of the flowers. They should be purple-blue, on the verge of turning grayish-brown. The producer also crushes a few petals to see how much oil comes out. The harvester is specially designed for cutting lavender. Like a stylist cutting hair, it pulls the stems straight up, then snips near the base. The cut stems, about 40 centimeters long, fall onto a conveyor belt, which moves them into a tray. From there, workers manually transfer the lavender to the harvester's trailer. When the trailer is full, the harvester delivers its load to the on-site distillery. Workers load the lavender into a still, a large stainless steel vessel typically used to produce alcoholic spirits, but in this case, lavender oil. They compact as much lavender as possible into the still to prevent the formation of air pockets. The less air, the greater the oil yield. Once the still is stuffed to compacted capacity, they close it tightly and start up an oil-fired boiler. The boiler heats water into steam, which they then inject into the bottom of the still at very low pressure. Over the course of about 15 minutes, the steam slowly rises to the top of the still, heating the lavender along the way. They continue the steam for another half hour or so. This bursts the glands located primarily in the petals, to a lesser extent in the leaves and stems, releasing the oil. To collect that extracted oil, they feed cold water into a coiled pipe running through the still. When the hot steam hits that cold pipe, it condenses, transforming back into water. Only now, that water contains lavender oil. They open the still's tap and let the water flow into a holding tank. On average, the proportions are 1 part lavender oil to 40 parts water. In the holding tank, over the next hour or so, the oil naturally separates and rises to the surface. At that point, they begin pumping the water to another container, stopping at the first sign of oil. What remains in the tank is the final product, pure lavender essential oil. The pumped out water is a secondary product called lavender floral water. The producer sends both products to a laboratory to be filtered. Besides selling lavender oil and floral water as ingredients to manufacturers of health and beauty products, producers often design their own lines of lavender creations for pampering the body and soul.
It's the first sense you use when you're born. 1 out of every 50 of your genes is dedicated to it. It must be important, right? Okay, take a deep breath through your nose. It's your sense of smell, and it's breathtakingly powerful. As an adult, you can distinguish about 10,000 different smells. Here's how your nose does it. Smell starts when you sniff molecules from the air into your nostrils. 95% of your nasal cavity is used just to filter that air before it hits your lungs. But at the very back of your nose is a region called the olfactory epithelium, a little patch of skin that's key to everything you smell. The olfactory epithelium has a layer of olfactory receptor cells, special neurons that sense smells, like the taste buds of your nose. When odor molecules hit the back of your nose, they get stuck in a layer of mucus covering the olfactory epithelium. As they dissolve, they bind to the olfactory receptor cells, which fire and send signals through the olfactory tract up to your brain. But how do you actually tell the difference between smells? It turns out that your brain has 40 million different olfactory receptor neurons. So odor A might trigger neurons 3, 427, and 988, and odor B might trigger neurons 8, 76, and 2,496,678. All of these different combinations let you detect a staggeringly broad array of smells. Plus, your olfactory neurons are always fresh and ready for action. They're the only neuron in the body that gets replaced regularly, every 4 to 8 weeks. Once those neurons are triggered, the signal travels through a bundle called the olfactory tract to destinations all over your brain, making stops in the amygdala, the thalamus, and the neocortex. This is different from how sight and sound are processed. Each of those signals goes first to a relay center in the middle of the cerebral hemisphere, and then out to other regions of the brain. But smell, because it evolved before most of your other senses, takes a direct route to these different regions of the brain, where it can trigger your fight or flight response, help you recall memories, or make your mouth water. But even though we've all got the same physiological setup, 2 nostrils and millions of olfactory neurons, not everybody smells the same things. Not being able to smell anything can mess with your other senses too. Many people who can't smell at all also can't really taste the same way the rest of us do. It turns out that how something tastes is closely related to how it smells. As you chew your food, air is pushed up your nasal passage, carrying with it the smell of your food. Those scents hit your olfactory epithelium and tell your brain a lot about what you're eating. Without the ability to smell, you lose the ability to taste anything more complicated than the 5 tastes your taste buds can detect: sweet, salty, bitter, sour, and savory. So the next time you smell exhaust fumes, salty sea air, or roast chicken, you'll know exactly how you've done it, and perhaps be a little more thankful that you can.
So the olfactory neurons, once they bind this odor molecule and change, as I say, their electrical quality, the voltage, if you will, across their membrane, this signal is transmitted to the brain down a long cable-like structure called an axon, which most brain cells have. It goes through a very thin bone and into a region of your brain called the olfactory bulb, a very small chunk of your brain that actually hangs under the bottom of your brain, just kind of behind your eyes, if you will. And there they make a connection with another set of neurons, so a connection that we call a synapse. And they make a connection with another set of neurons, which then transmits the message to the next step in the brain. So the first step, the first relay station, is the olfactory bulb. And from there, the signal is sent mostly to an area, a specialized area of cortex, of brain cortex called the piriform cortex. Now, this pathway is unusual because the other senses, typically from the primary tissue, the retina or the auditory, the hair cells of the auditory, the cochlea, send their signals first to a tissue in the center of the brain, an organizing region in the center of the brain called the thalamus. And there the signals are sorted and standardized and then moved out into specialized area of the cortex, the visual cortex at the back of your brain, the auditory cortex on the side of your brain, for further processing and presumably building up into a perception. The olfactory system is a bit unusual in that way, in that it does not go through the thalamus. So instead, in the olfactory system, you go from the sensory neurons to this olfactory bulb structure, where there's a synapse with another kind of cell. It's called a mitral cell. And those mitral cells take in information from lots of different sensory neurons and decide what's being smelled out there. Because, of course, most of the time we don't smell a single molecule. We smell a blend of molecules, usually a complex blend of molecules. And so pulling that all apart is at least partly the job of these mitral cells, to which the olfactory sensory neurons make a connection. The mitral cells then make some decisions, if you will. They integrate information, and they have an axon, also a long cable, that goes to this area of the brain called the piriform cortex, where they synapse, make connections with yet another cell. So what's remarkable about this in the olfactory system is that from the outside world to cortical tissue, which is the highest level of brain tissue we have, there are only 2 synapses, 2 connections. One between the sensory neuron and these cells in the olfactory bulb, and then between these olfactory bulb cells, the mitral cells, and those in the piriform cortex.
It is a great honor to introduce the Nobel laureate in physiology or medicine, Dr. Richard Axel.
Your Majesties, Your Royal Highnesses, Your Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen. Linda Buck and I received a medal which is inscribed with 3 words: Creavit et promovit. He created and he promoted. As we have read in The Ascent of Man, it is not within the business of science to inherit the earth, but to improve it. We have asked how the brain builds an internal representation of the external sensory world, and how the recognition of olfactory stimuli might lead to meaningful thoughts and behaviors. While performing these experiments, while watching the data unfold remarkably before our eyes, it seemed inconceivable that we could experience a moment of greater joy or fulfillment.
You're watching Fox 17 News at 9.
Well, it's one of the most stressful jobs on the planet. But tonight, the doctors and nurses in Vanderbilt's emergency room are feeling calmer. As Fox 17's John Dunn reports, they're improving the mood and the smell at the same time.
There's no denying hospitals have a certain odor.
It makes you feel bad, makes you feel sad, it brings back bad memories.
Kind of got a death smell to it, I guess. I'd say a funeral home.
But inside Vanderbilt's emergency room,
people say it smells like dreamsicles. I've heard margarita.
The hospital smell has disappeared.
This diffuser is right now diffusing lime.
Scattered around are several essential oil diffusers, dispensing a therapeutic scent throughout the ER.
It's very pleasant, fresh, clean.
The ER's Wellness Committee decided to test the oils to not only improve the smell, but also the workplace.
We wanted oils that would help decrease stress and increase energy.
The results are dramatic. According to their survey of more than 100 ER staff members, before the oils, 41% of them said they were stressed out at work. After the oils, only 3% were stressed. Prior to aromatherapy, 60% of ER staff members were frustrated at work. After a little oil, 6% felt frustrated.
The results were phenomenal, just the before and after.
At first, there were plenty of skeptics, not believing a drop here and a drop there could really make a difference.
Some people, I included, at first thought it was like voodoo medicine, like it's never going to work.
Now, nurses like Anna Malajic are using them at home.
And it really is amazing.
Vanderbilt's ER may be the only one in the country diffusing essential oils. And supporters say if it's working for staff, it could also help patients.
Not make it as a medical treatment, but a complementary therapy for the patients.
There are many people who will tell you what a hospital is supposed to smell like.
It's not pine sol, but it has a smell.
In Vanderbilt's emergency room, it's wild orange, lime, lemon, and citrus bliss.
I love anything that we do for our staff to make them better, because the better that we make our staff, the better our patients are going to be.
A change that definitely passes the smell test. John Dunn, Fox 17 News.
And get this, 84% of the nurses and doctors inside Vanderbilt's emergency room strongly agree that the oils contribute to a more positive work environment. The Wellness Committee plans to publish their results, highlighting their success. So if you're wondering how those essential oils work, when the oils are diffused into the air, the aromatic molecules are inhaled. They interact with the body's olfactory nerves and the limbic system. The limbic system is directly connected to parts of the brain that control heart rate, blood pressure, breathing, memory, stress levels, and other emotions. Scents have a powerful effect, much like the smell of freshly baked cookies, reminding someone of their grandmother.
Welcome back. 9:14 is your time. ADD, ADHD, Asperger's syndrome, allergies, ear infections, you name it. And Tracy Hale's children suffered from it. But after trying a natural home remedy, one, by the way, that is surging in popularity lately, the metro area mom says all of her children are off their medication. They haven't been to the doctor in at least a year. And there's finally peace and calm in her home again. For Tracy Hales, it all started with just one bottle.
I noticed that his meltdowns were going from 30 minutes to an hour to just in minutes he was calming down. And we were seeing him, like while I was rubbing it into his toe, he would calm down to the point that he was no longer crying. And I said, okay, there's something to this. This is doing something to my child, and it's working.
Hale says her children used to suffer from a laundry list of health issues, and she was disturbed by the side effects of their medication.
I was noticing my older child getting attached to taking medicines, and he would start asking for them. And then I researched the drugs he was on and noticed that they had the same effects as the cocaine and methamphetamine in his body. And I said, okay, we've got to do something different.
Different came in the form of essential oils, a variety of liquids extracted from plants and other natural sources. And as Hales witnessed her children's health problems decrease one by one, the bottles of essential oils in her house increased one by one. If you had to guess, how many oils are in this house?
I think the last time I counted, I had about 120.
And growing.
And growing. And growing. Yes, absolutely.
Now, essential oils are not new. In fact, they've been around since, well, what is new is its reemergence in popularity in recent years as people are using them for seemingly everything, for its reported healing properties, for cooking, cleaning, and hygiene. There are even essential oils for pets.
I think it's, again, that hunger and that thirst to really find alternatives and to find additional options for taking care of your family or for yourself.
Dr. Tasmin Badia, or Dr. Taz, offers both conventional and alternative methods at her practice at the Center for Holistic and Integrative Medicine. She says what we're witnessing is more people deciding to take the reins of their overall health.
When so much of disease in this country is prevention-oriented or chronic, where it's been going on for a long period of time, you really do want to explore all the different options, everything from how you eat to something like essential oils.
Now, while there are legions of people who swear by essential oils, there is a clear FDA disclaimer at the bottom of every brochure warning that they are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases.
To me, as a physician, the worst situation is where people think that because I'm doing these things that are natural, I don't need to do anything else. That's the scariest traps. There's a middle zone, you know, and you can use essential oils for a couple of things, but you may need to do some things from the conventional medicine world as well to keep yourself healthy.
However, Dr. Taz says in 3 or 4 years, the medical pendulum could swing towards a more natural approach to healing as more research and demand drives up interest.
It started off slow. I bought one at a time.
Hales admits she was skeptical at first too, but after witnessing firsthand the incredible results in her own family, she became an essential oil distributor and a believer.
But I saw a need and more people kept coming to me asking, and of course I was putting it out there. This is what's happening with my family. These are the changes we've seen. And so as people started asking questions, I couldn't not, help.
And here's the thing, you can buy essential oils essentially everywhere, but both Hales and Dr. Taz recommend you want to get the best quality that you can. And because essential oils are very powerful, you should dilute them before using them on your children.